What's up and welcome to My Point of View. I am your fat and opinionated host, and we have heard all types of first-hand accounts from people who knew Bryan Kohberger, and I find it really interesting, like how different each one of these people's accounts are, and it shows you the true human experience. Too often we try to take people and we try to put them in a box. Oh, this person's an extrovert, that person's an introvert. When in reality, people are way more complex than that. Oftentimes, the experience you have with someone is a totally different experience than the next person will have with that person. Sometimes people's vibes just match. Sometimes people's energies match. Sometimes someone who is off-putting to you is someone who other people will gravitate towards. So when it comes to Bryan Kohberger, we've heard he's awkward, we've heard he's weird, we've heard he's smart. A lot of times it seems as if Bryan was more of an introvert than you hear from other people, and that's not always the case. So there's a lot of different takes out there. There's a lot of different opinions. There's a lot of, like I said, first-hand accounts out there from people who knew Bryan, and everyone has a different story to tell. You know, to some people, Bryan was a little more weirder than others, and personally, I can tell you that I am like a extroverted introvert. If I get around the right people and people I'm comfortable with, I open up and I'm an extrovert to the next level. But I'm also an introvert. I like to be to myself a lot. I like to read. I don't necessarily like to go out to big clubs and big parties and be surrounded by a lot of people anymore. So I think people are just a little more complex than that. But we've heard a lot about Bryan, having trouble connecting with women and things of that nature. And some people think that maybe this attack was targeted because maybe one of the three women who Bryan unalived, if you will, maybe they shot down one of his advances or something like that. People think that maybe there was some bitterness there, and I do think that's a huge possibility. But now someone is speaking out who actually went on a date with Bryan Kohberger. They matched on Tinder, and she had kind of a weird experience with him. So let's go ahead and hear what she has to say.
Hey, it's me, the girl that went on a Tinder date with Bryan. A lot of people have been trying to dox me, specifically on Reddit, but I never thought the comments that I made on Hobot News would make it to TikTok or Reddit or literally anything. But here we are. So I thought I would make this because a lot of people are just saying things that are not true at all. My interactions with Bryan were very brief. I don't know much about him. My total interactions with him were like 24 hours. We matched on Tinder. We talked for a couple hours, and then he was like, hey, you want to go to the movies with me tonight? And I was like, sure. So we went to the movies. Honestly, I don't even remember what movie we saw. We ended up going back to my dorm, and he kind of invited himself inside. I thought he was just going to drop me off, but that was not the case. He kind of invited himself inside, and I was just like, okay, I went along with it. So he wanted to watch another movie on Netflix, and I said, sure. He kept trying to touch me, not like inappropriately, just like trying to tickle me and like rub my shoulders and stuff. And I was like, why are you touching me, or what are you doing? And he would just like get super serious, and he's like, I'm not. And I'm like, you are though. And he's like, I'm not touching you. Kind of like trying to gaslight me into thinking that he didn't touch me, which was weird. But then I was like, I'm just gonna run to the bathroom quick. And he was like, okay. And then he followed me to the bathroom, which I thought was kind of weird. So like in the dorm there was like a shared bathroom. He didn't go in with me, but like he stood outside the door and like I don't know. I just thought that was weird. And I was like, I need to get this dude to leave. Like, just not into it. So I proceeded to pretend to throw up, to get him to leave. It wasn't because I was scared of him or like thought he would hurt me if I asked him to leave. It was just mostly because I'm socially awkward. Didn't know how to ask him to leave. So that's what I did. He ended up messaging me on Tinder that he was gonna go, and I was like, awesome, my plan worked. And then about an hour later, he texted me and said I had good birthing hips, so I never talked.
Okay, ladies, if you're on your first date with some guy, or you're just getting to know him over the phone and he texts you, or he gives you the compliment that you have good birthing hips, go ahead and run as fast as you can in the opposite direction. Chances are he's planning on eating you, and not in the good way. I'm talking straight Jeffrey Dahmer type stuff. I can't even get my words out correctly. Yeah, I would have been weirded out too. And from what she's saying, he was kind of clingy, and you know, I can see that being true. This doesn't sound too far-fetched to me. I think she dodged a bullet. Any woman who's ever been with Bryan Laundrie alone, you dodged a bullet. Hell, anyone in general. You know what I mean? And I can't help but just wonder. And I don't get me wrong, I never want to experience this or be in these people's shoes, but it's got to be a weird feeling, like knowing what Bryan's accused of doing and knowing that, oh, damn, I was alone with him in my dorm room at one time. What could have possibly happened to me? You know what I mean? And he's like standing outside of the bathroom waiting on her, so she's pretending to throw up. I'm glad she got away, but I wonder how long ago did Bryan really start having these urges? If these accusations about Bryan are true, did he have those urges back then? Was that something he was fighting? Or did he just become so frustrated from his lack of, I mean, I don't want to be too graphic, but did he become more frustrated over time because of his lack of success with women? I don't know. But like I said, we've heard so many different accounts from people who knew Bryan, and sometimes I just want to know, well, I'm glad we know now. I wanted to know, like, what is his experience in the dating world? Because I think sometimes that can tell you a lot about people like Bryan, and I don't think he had much success with women. And maybe that's something that caused a lot of built up frustrations and animosity within him as well. And that's maybe why he carried out this situation. And she describes him as clingy, which is usually not a word that you would use to describe someone and when it's just like your first time meeting. So if she could really use the word clingy for Bryan, I think it kind of shows you maybe Bryan was lacking, human affection and things of that nature. Clingy for the first date, clingy? That's kind of weird. Now, I understand maybe if you've been talking to someone for a little while and you describe them as clingy, but for that to be your first impression of someone, I think it shows that maybe Bryan could have been quickly to become obsessive over people and things like that. But hey, who am I to say? I know anyone who survived Bryan Kohberger. There's so many Bryans right now. Now there's another case out there about some guy who, it looks like, unalived his wife. He searched up like how to dismember people online and stuff, and his name is Bryan as well. So bear with me, people. I've dealt with like 4 killer Bryans within the last year or so. It's becoming overwhelming. But yeah, I think this, just goes to show what type of person Bryan is. It gives you a little bit of a better insight into who Bryan is. Also, I think there's some social media posts out there of Bryan talking about how he had trouble connecting, just with humans in general. So I think maybe this shows that he would try to form those connections, but he didn't know how, and he would try to form them too quickly. Like, you're telling a girl she has good birthing hips. Like, what? Like, your first day talking. But anyway, let me get out of here. Let me know how you all feel down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell, and remember, always remain opinionated.